Hey guys, tonight we dive into the swirling, vibrant, and heartbreaking world of Vincent van Gogh, the Dutch painter whose passion and pain created art that still sets hearts ablaze. Picture yourself under a starry sky, the kind Vincent loved, where each brushstroke of light feels like a whisper from the universe. His story isn't just about paintings. It's about a man who saw beauty where others saw nothing, who wrestled with his mind, and whose genius was misunderstood until long after he was gone. Fair warning, you probably won't survive this tale without feeling a little tug at your soul. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Are you up late in New York or drifting off in Tokyo? Sometimes these stories keep you awake. Other times, they're your ticket to dreamland. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the quiet village of Zundert, in the southern Netherlands, on the 30th of March, 1853. The air smells of damp earth and blooming heather, and the sky stretches wide over flat fields dotted with windmills. A child is born today, a boy named Vincent Willem van Gogh. But there's a shadow over this birth, a strange weight that lingers in the Van Gogh household. Exactly 1 year earlier, his parents, Theodorus and Anna, buried another son, also named Vincent, who was stillborn. His tiny grave sits just outside the local church, the tombstone etched with the same name and a date so close to this new Vincent's. Imagine being a child, growing up knowing your name belongs to a ghost, a brother you never met, lying under the cold ground. It's the kind of thing that sticks in a young mind, coloring the world with questions no one can answer. You watch little Vincent, the eldest of 6 children, as he wanders through Zundert's countryside. His father, Theodorus, is a Protestant minister, a man of quiet faith and stern routine. His mother, Anna, loves nature, sketching flowers and trees in her spare time, a spark of creativity Vincent seems to inherit. Their home is modest, filled with the hum of family life, siblings laughing, arguing, growing. But Vincent is different. He's not like the other kids, running and shouting in the village square. He's sensitive, serious, a boy who feels everything too deeply. You see him walking alone, his small figure cutting through fields of tall grass, staring at the way sunlight dances on leaves, or how clouds pile up like thoughts in the sky. Nature speaks to him in ways people don't. He's not loud or demanding, but his silence is heavy, like he's carrying something no one else can see. School is a struggle. You follow Vincent to his lessons, where he sits at the back, his dark eyes fixed on nothing in particular. He's bright, curious, but he doesn't fit. Classmates find him odd, too intense, too quiet. Teachers call him difficult, though some notice a kindness in him, a thoughtfulness that shows when he helps a struggling friend or shares his lunch. But those moments are rare. More often, he's lost in his own world, sketching in the margins of his books or staring out the window at the endless Dutch horizon. His mood swings catch people off guard. One moment he's gentle, the next he's angry, then silent again. It's not defiance. It's like he's wrestling with something inside, something he can't name yet. You notice his bond with his younger brother, Theo, growing even in these early years. Theo is softer, steadier, a boy who listens when Vincent talks about the shapes of trees or the colors in a sunset. They walk together sometimes, kicking stones along dirt paths, and you can sense it. Theo is Vincent's anchor, the one person who doesn't make him feel like an outsider. This bond will matter later, more than either of them knows. For now, though, Vincent is a boy on the edges, watching the world more than he's part of it. He collects details others miss: the curve of a petal, the shadow of a cloud, the way a farmer's hands grip a plow. These are the seeds of something, though he doesn't know it yet. Painting is still years away, but the way he sees, the way he feels, is already forming. Let's pause for a quick history check. Vincent was born during a time when the Netherlands was a quiet, religious, and rural place, still recovering from economic struggles after the Napoleonic Wars. This was the mid-19th century, a world of candlelight and horse-drawn carts, where art was mostly for the wealthy, not for a preacher's son from Zundert. Historians still argue whether Vincent's intense personality was shaped more by his family's strict religious upbringing or by the eerie weight of his stillborn brother's name. Some lean toward the psychological impact of that shadow, others toward the cultural rigidity of his environment. Either way, it made him different. Now, for a quirky tidbit, young Vincent was obsessed with collecting bugs. He'd spend hours catching beetles and butterflies, pinning them carefully in boxes, not out of cruelty, but out of fascination with their colors and patterns. It's a hint of the artist he'd become, someone who found beauty in the smallest, overlooked things. A little creepy, sure, but also kind of endearing, don't you think? Imagine him, a gangly kid with messy hair, crouched in the grass, whispering to a beetle like it's got secrets to share. You walk beside Vincent as he grows, his teenage years creeping closer. He's still quiet, still apart, but there's a fire in him, a need to understand the world and his place in it. He's not painting yet, not even close, but he's watching, always watching. The fields, the skies, the people, they're all sinking into him, filling up the corners of his mind. You can almost see it, the way his eyes linger on a crooked tree or a worker bent in the fields. It's like he's storing colors and shapes for a canvas he doesn't know he'll need someday. For now, he's just Vincent, the boy who feels too much, who walks alone, who carries a name that's both his and not his. The world hasn't noticed him yet, but it will. Oh, it will. The path ahead is long, winding, and not always kind. Vincent's life will be a storm of color and heartbreak, of brilliance born from pain. But right now, in Zundert, he's just a boy, standing in a field, staring at the sky as it turns gold at dusk. You can almost hear his thoughts, quiet but heavy. What am I supposed to do with all this beauty? The answer's coming, but it'll take time. For now, he's a child of silence, and the world is waiting. You are still in the Netherlands, but the years have slipped forward, and Vincent van Gogh is no longer the quiet boy wandering Zundert's fields. Now, in his late teens and early 20s, you see him standing at a crossroads, the weight of the world's expectations pressing down on his shoulders. The Dutch countryside still stretches around him, all flat horizons and gray skies, but the air feels heavier now, charged with the question every young person faces. What are you going to do with your life? Vincent's path isn't straight. It's a tangle of false starts, dead ends, and restless searching. You walk beside him as he tries to find his place, his purpose, in a world that seems to demand answers he doesn't have. You start in The Hague, where Vincent, barely out of his teens, lands his first real job. His uncle, a successful art dealer, pulls strings to get him a position at Goupil and Cia, a prestigious firm dealing in paintings and prints. You follow him into the polished offices, where the air smells of ink and old wood, and the walls are lined with framed artworks, landscapes, portraits, scenes of wealth and refinement. Vincent's job is simple: sell art, catalog it, move it from one rich buyer to another. He's good at it, at first. His sharp mind catches details, and his love for beauty makes him a natural at describing paintings. But you notice something off. The commerce of it, the cold transactions, the way art becomes just another product, it grates on him. He's not here to haggle over prices. He wants to feel the art, to understand its soul. His colleagues find him odd, too intense, his dark eyes lingering too long on a canvas when he should be closing a deal. You travel with him to London, then Paris, as Goupil sends him to their international branches. In London, you walk the foggy streets, the city alive with horse-drawn carriages and gas lamps flickering in the dusk. Vincent is 20 now, lanky, with a scruffy beard and a habit of talking too fast when he's excited. He falls in love for the first time with his landlady's daughter, Eugenie. You can see it in his face, the way his eyes light up when she passes, the way he fumbles for words. But she's engaged, and when he confesses his feelings, she rejects him gently but firmly. You feel the sting as he does, the sharp ache of unreturned love. It's not just a crush, it's a wound that lingers, making him question himself even more. He starts to withdraw, his letters to Theo growing longer, more introspective, as if he's trying to write his way out of the pain. Back at Goupil, things unravel. You see Vincent in Paris, surrounded by galleries and the buzz of the art world, but he's miserable. The job feels hollow, a betrayal of the beauty he loves. He argues with clients, skips work, spends hours staring at paintings instead of selling them. His bosses notice. By 1876, he's let go, his first real failure. You can almost hear the whispers in the office. Too emotional, too unreliable. Vincent doesn't argue. He just leaves, his coat too thin for the spring chill, his mind spinning with questions about what comes next. Now you're in England again, where Vincent tries teaching at a small boarding school. You see him in a cramped classroom, his voice soft but earnest, trying to connect with boys who don't care about his lessons on geography or scripture. It's not his calling, and he knows it. The pay is meager, the work draining. He moves on, trying his hand as a bookseller's assistant, then a clerk. Each job feels like a misfit, like shoes that pinch too tight. You watch him pace at night, his rented room lit by a single candle, his thoughts racing. He's 23, and the world expects him to have it figured out, but every door he tries seems to slam shut. Then something shifts. You follow Vincent back to the Netherlands, where he turns to religion, hoping it will anchor him. His father's a minister, so it makes sense faith runs deep in the family. You see him studying theology, hunched over books in Amsterdam, his brow furrowed with determination. But the exams are brutal, and Vincent's not built for academic rigor. He fails, spectacularly. You can feel his frustration, the way he grips his pen too tight, the way he mutters to himself about God and duty. Undeterred, he decides to serve anyway, not as a scholar, but as a missionary. You travel with him to the Borinage, a grim mining region in Belgium, where the air smells of coal dust and despair hangs like fog. In the Borinage, you see a different Vincent. He's 25 now, gaunt, his clothes patched and worn. The miners live in poverty, their faces smudged with soot, their bodies bent from labor. Vincent doesn't just preach to them, He lives like them. You watch him give away his coat to a shivering child, sleep on straw in a shack, share his bread with families who have none. He's not polished or charismatic, but there's a fire in him, a need to help, to understand their suffering. The church, though, doesn't approve. They call him fanatic, too extreme, and dismiss him from his post. Another failure. You see the hurt in his eyes, the way he stares at the ground, wondering if he'll ever find his place. But something else is stirring. You notice Vincent sketching again, the way he did as a child. He draws the miners, their rough hands, their tired eyes, their small moments of warmth around a fire. These aren't polished drawings. They're raw, full of feeling. You stand behind him as he scratches lines into cheap paper, his hands smudged with charcoal. It's not art for galleries. It's art for survival. A way to process the pain he sees, the pain he feels. He writes to Theo, his words spilling out. I must do something with my hands, something honest. You sense it now, the spark of what's to come. Vincent isn't just sketching. He's finding himself. Let's ground this in history. In the late 1872, the Borinage was a harsh place. A coal mining region hit hard by industrialization's toll, child, labor, disease, and poverty were rampant. Vincent's time there aligns with a broader wave of social reform movements across Europe, where some sought to uplift the working class. Historians still argue whether Vincent's religious phase was a genuine spiritual calling or a desperate attempt to find purpose after repeated failures. Was he driven by faith or by a need to belong? The debate lingers, but his empathy for the miners was undeniable. Here's a quirky tidbit. During his time in London, Vincent became obsessed with Charles Dickens' novels, especially the ones about the poor and overlooked. He'd quote them in letters, comparing himself to Dickens' struggling characters. It's almost funny to picture him, this awkward Dutchman, wandering London streets, clutching a dog-eared copy of Oliver Twist, seeing himself as a kind of tragic hero. A bit dramatic, but that's Vincent for you. You leave the Borinage with Vincent, his bag light, but his heart heavy. He's failed at commerce, at teaching, at preaching. But those sketches, those rough lines of miners and lamplight, they're something new. They're not just drawings. They're a lifeline. You can see it in the way he holds his pencil, the way his eyes light up when he captures a face just right. He's not an artist yet, not in his own mind, but you know better. The world hasn't noticed, but Vincent van Gogh is about to step onto a path that will change everything. For now, though, he's just a man, bruised by rejection, walking toward an uncertain future, with only his brother's letters and a few scraps of paper to keep him going. You're in the Borinage now, a gritty coal mining region in Belgium, where the air is thick with soot and the ground is scarred from years of digging. It's the late 1872, and Vincent van Gogh, barely 27, is a man adrift, his dreams of preaching shattered. You walk beside him through this bleak landscape, where skeletal trees pierce the gray sky, and miners shuffle home, their faces blackened, their eyes hollow. Vincent's here because he thought he could save souls, but the church has cast him out, calling his fervor too wild, his poverty too extreme. Yet, as you follow him, you see something new taking root in the ashes of his failures, a spark that will ignite the artist he's destined to become. The Borinage is no place for dreamers. You pass ramshackle huts where families huddle around meager fires, their clothes patched, their meals thin. Vincent lives like them, not out of obligation, but because he can't do otherwise. You see him give away his last coin to a miner's widow, trade his coat for a loaf of bread to share with children, sleep on a straw mat in a damp shed. His face is thinner now, his cheeks sunken, his red hair tangled under a worn cap. He's not preaching anymore, the church stripped him of that, but he's still here, among the miners, because he believes in their humanity, their struggle. You watch him sit with them at night, listening to their stories of cave-ins and hunger, his dark eyes wide with empathy. He doesn't have answers, but he has something else, a need to bear witness. One evening you find Vincent hunched over a table in a dimly lit shack, a stub of charcoal in his hand. He's sketching a miner, his broad shoulders slumped, his hands rough as the coal he digs. The lines are clumsy, untrained, but there's something alive in them, a truth that goes beyond technique. You lean closer, noticing how Vincent captures the man's exhaustion, the weight of his life, in the curve of his back, the shadows under his eyes. This isn't art for sale or show. It's art as understanding, as connection. Vincent doesn't say much, but his pencil speaks, scratching out the pain and dignity of the people around him. You realize this is new for him. The sketching he did as a child, the doodles in his school books, they're coming back, but with purpose now. He's not just drawing. He's translating suffering into lines and shadows. You follow him through the Borenage's muddy paths, where he stops to sketch anything that catches his eye. A weary woman carrying water, a child playing in the dirt, the jagged silhouette of a mine shaft against the dusk. His drawings are rough, almost brutal, but they hum with feeling. You overhear him talking to a miner one day, his voice low and earnest. There's beauty in this hardness, don't you think? In how people keep going. The miner nods, unsure, but you see it. Vincent's not just seeing the world. He's trying to hold it, to make sense of it. His sketches are his way of saying, I see you. Your life matters. This moment in the Borenage is a turning point, though Vincent doesn't know it yet. You watch him make a quiet decision, one that will change everything. He's done with preaching, with trying to fit into roles that don't suit him. Instead, he'll draw, he'll paint, he'll create, not for fame or money, those are far from his mind, but because it's the only honest way he knows to process the world. You see him write to Theo, his brother, his words spilling onto the page. I feel a fire in me, Theo. I must do something with it, or it will burn me up. Theo, ever loyal, sends money for paper, charcoal, and later paints. You can almost feel Vincent's gratitude, mixed with guilt, as he accepts the help, knowing he has nothing to offer in return but promises and sketches. Let's anchor this in history. The Borenage, in the late 1872, was a microcosm of Europe's industrial underbelly, where coal fueled progress but broke the backs of those who mined it. Vincent's time here coincides with a growing awareness of workers' rights, as reformers began documenting the harsh conditions of industrial labor. Historians still argue whether Vincent's immersion in the miners' lives was an act of selfless empathy or a reflection of his own inner turmoil, a way to mirror his sense of being an outcast. Was he saving them, or saving himself through them? The debate lingers, but his sketches from this period, raw, unpolished, human, suggest both. Here's a quirky tidbit to lighten the mood. Vincent, in his zeal to live like the miners, once tried to cook his own meals over a fire, only to burn a pot of potatoes so badly it turned to charcoal. He laughed it off, saying it was a study in black, and kept the charred pot as a reminder of his culinary disaster. It's a small human moment, isn't it? This intense man, so serious about suffering, still finding room to chuckle at his own clumsiness. You walk with Vincent as he sketches more, his hands growing steadier, his eyes sharper. He's teaching himself, copying old drawings, studying anatomy from books Theo sends. His work is still dark, heavy with browns and grays, reflecting the Boranage's grim reality. One piece stands out, a sketch of a miner's family eating potatoes by lamplight. You can almost smell the smoke, feel the weight of their silence. It's not beautiful in the classical sense, but it's honest, and Vincent values honesty above all. He writes to Theo, "I want to make art that speaks the truth, that shows life as it is." You sense the shift. He's not just sketching now. He's committing to a life of art, even if he doesn't fully understand what that means. The Boranage has broken Vincent. In some ways, his health is frail, his clothes tattered, his spirit bruised by rejection. But it's also where he finds his voice. You see it in the way he grips his pencil, the way his sketches capture not just faces but feelings. He's not an artist yet, not in the world's eyes, but you know better. The miners, the lamplight, the coal dust, they're teaching him something no school could. They're teaching him to see, to feel, to create. As you leave the Boranage, Vincent's bag is heavier now, not with possessions, but with purpose. He's still poor, still unknown, but he's carrying something new, a fire that won't go out, a need to turn the world's pain and beauty into art. The path ahead is long, and it won't be easy, but Vincent van Gogh has finally found his calling. You're still in the Boranage, but the year is 1880, and Vincent van Gogh, now 27, has made a quiet vow to himself. He will become an artist. The coal dust of the mining region still clings to his boots, but you sense a shift in him, a stubborn resolve taking root. The world has rejected him as a preacher, a teacher, a dealer, but here, among the miners' struggles, he's found something that feels true. You walk beside him as he steps into this new life, not with confidence, but with a desperate need to create, to turn the chaos inside him into something the world might understand. This is no romantic beginning. It's gritty, raw, and relentless. And you're about to see Vincent forge himself into an artist through sheer will. You follow him to a cramped room in Kesmes, a mining village in the Boranage. The walls are damp, the roof leaks, and the single window lets in a weak, gray light. Vincent's worldly possessions are few. A rickety table, a straw mattress, and a growing stack of paper and charcoal. Theo, his lifeline, sends small sums of money, enough for bread, coffee, and art supplies. You watch Vincent hunch over his table, his hands smudged black, sketching with an intensity that borders on obsession. He's not trained, not polished. His lines are heavy, his figures awkward, but there's something alive in them, a pulse of emotion that makes you lean closer. He draws miners, their faces etched with exhaustion, their hands gnarled from labor. He sketches fields, bent trees, women carrying baskets. Every stroke feels like a confession, a way to capture the truth of the lives around him. Vincent's early works are dark, painted in the muddy browns and grays of the Boranage. You stand behind him as he paints his first significant piece, The Potato Eaters, in 1885, though he's been building toward it for years. Picture it. A peasant family gathered around a rough table, lit by a single dim lamp. Their hands are coarse, their faces weathered, their meal nothing but potatoes and coffee. You can almost smell the damp earth on their clothes, hear the silence between them. Vincent pours everything into this painting: his empathy for the poor, his belief in the dignity of ordinary lives. He writes to Theo, "I want them to say, 'He feels deeply, he feels tenderly.' But when he shows it to the art world, they scoff. Too crude, they say, too grim." You see the hurt in Vincent's eyes, but also the defiance. He's not painting for their approval, he's painting for truth. You watch him teach himself, day after day, with no teacher but his own determination. He studies anatomy books, copying diagrams of hands and faces until his fingers cramp. He practices perspective, drawing grids on paper to get the angles right. He copies sketches by old masters like Millet, whose peasant scenes he admires. You see him fill notebooks with studies, hands holding tools, boots caked in mud, fields under heavy skies. It's grueling work, and he's not kind to himself. You overhear him mutter, "If I'm no good at this, I'm no good at anything." But he doesn't stop. Art isn't a choice for Vincent. It's survival, a way to make sense of the world and the storm inside his head. His life in these years is one of poverty. You trail him through small towns, Etten, The Hague, Drenthe, where he lives in cheap rooms or with family, always on the edge of destitution. His clothes are threadbare, his meals often just bread and cheese. Sometimes he skips food to buy paint. You see him walking miles to sketch a field or a worker, his easel slung over his shoulder, his boots worn through. Yet, despite the hardship, there's a fire in him. You catch him smiling as he mixes colors, a rare moment of joy when a shade of brown captures the exact texture of a plowman's coat. He's learning to speak with his brush, to turn feelings into forms. His work is still rough, still dismissed by those who see it. But you notice something. The more fragile his body becomes, the stronger his art grows. Let's tie this to history. In the early 1882, Europe was grappling with the social fallout of industrialization, and artists like Millet, whom Vincent idolized, were part of a realist movement that celebrated the working class. Vincent's focus on peasants aligns with this, but his raw, emotional style set him apart. Historians still argue whether Vincent's early work was a deliberate rejection of the polished art world or simply the only way he knew how to paint. Was he an outsider by choice or by necessity? The debate continues, but his commitment to depicting the unvarnished truth of life is clear. For a quirky tidbit, Vincent once traded a sketch for a hot meal at a tavern, only to have the owner use it to patch a hole in the wall. He laughed it off, saying, "At least my art's keeping someone warm." It's a classic Vincent moment, self-deprecating, a little sad, but with a spark of humor that keeps him going. You can't help but smile, imagining him shrugging as his work becomes literal insulation. You spend days with Vincent in the fields, watching him paint under the vast Dutch sky. He's not chasing beauty in the traditional sense. No rosy-cheeked maidens or grand landscapes for him. He's drawn to the ordinary, the overlooked, a farmer's weathered face, a pile of manure, a sky heavy with rain. His paintings don't charm, they confront. They demand you see the world as he does, full of struggle, but also full of dignity. You notice how he talks to his subjects, asking about their lives, their work, as if their stories are as important as the paint. To Vincent, they are. As you leave this period, Vincent is still unknown, still poor, still fighting to master his craft. But you see the artist emerging, brushstroke by brushstroke. His work is raw, his life precarious. But there's a clarity in him now. He's not painting to impress. He's painting to exist. You feel the weight of his determination, the way he clings to art like a lifeline. The world isn't ready for him yet, but that doesn't matter. Vincent van Gogh is becoming an artist, not of technique, but of truth. And as you walk away from the Borinage, you know the storm of creativity inside him is only just beginning to gather. You're stepping into Paris now, in the spring of 1886, and the city is a whirlwind of color and noise, a far cry from the grim coal fields of the Borinage. Vincent van Gogh, at 33, arrives with his tattered suitcase and a heart full of hunger, not for food, though he's often short on that, but for something new, something alive. You follow him through the bustling streets of Montmartre, where cafes hum with laughter, street performers strum guitars, and the air smells of fresh bread and absinthe. Paris is the beating heart of the art world, and Vincent, still a rough-edged outsider, is about to be transformed by its light. You're here to witness his palette explode, his brushstrokes loosen, and his world shift from shadow to radiance. Vincent moves in with his brother Theo, who's now an art dealer with a small apartment in Montmartre. You see them together, cramped but close, Theo's steady presence a balm for Vincent's restless spirit. Theo's apartment is a hub of ideas, filled with catalogs of paintings and letters from artists. You watch Vincent soak it all in, his eyes wide as he flips through prints of impressionist works, Monet's soft water lilies, Renoir's glowing figures. This is a new language, one of light and color, so different from the heavy browns of his Borinage sketches. You catch him staring at a canvas by Pissarro, muttering, "It's like they've bottled the sun." Paris is electric, and Vincent's ready to plug in. You trail him to galleries and studios, where he meets artists who will shape his path. There's Camille Pissarro, kind and thoughtful, who shows him how to capture light with quick, feathery strokes. You see Vincent at a cafe with Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, whose sharp wit and bold sketches make Vincent laugh, a rare sound. Émile Bernard, young and experimental, pushes Vincent to think beyond realism. And then there's Paul Gauguin, confident and brash, whose intense presence both fascinates and unsettles Vincent. You notice how Vincent watches them, not with envy, but with a kind of awe, like a kid in a candy store who can't decide what to taste first. These artists are painting the world not as it is, but as it feels, and Vincent's mind is racing to catch up. His palette changes almost overnight. You stand in his tiny studio, paint cans scattered like confetti, as he trades the muddy browns of his early work for vivid yellows, fiery reds, and electric blues. You watch him paint a still life flowers in a vase, their petals glowing against a turquoise background. It's not perfect, but it's alive, pulsing with energy. Impressionism, with its loose brushstrokes and focus on light, has grabbed him, but so has pointillism, Seurat's dot-by-dot method. You see him try it, dabbing tiny specks of color, but he's too impatient, too emotional for such precision. He wants to feel the paint, not control it. His brushstrokes grow wilder, more expressive, like he's trying to pour his soul onto the canvas. You walk with Vincent through Paris's parks and boulevards, where he paints en plein air, his easel wobbling in the wind. He captures the scene's shimmering water, the golden haze of a sunset, the blur of a crowd. You can almost hear his thoughts. This is what I've been missing, the light, the movement. But Paris isn't just about art. It's a city of temptation, and Vincent, always intense, dives in too deep. You see him in smoky cafes, sipping wine, arguing about art until dawn. His health, already fragile, takes a hit: too much coffee, too little food, too many late nights. You notice his hands tremble slightly as he paints, his eyes bloodshot. He's burning bright, but you wonder how long he can keep this up. Vincent starts painting self-portraits, dozens of them, and you stand behind him as he stares into a cracked mirror. Each one is different. In one, his eyes are sharp, challenging you. In another, he looks away, lost in thought. These aren't about vanity. They're a diary of his mind, a way to grapple with the storm inside. You feel the weight of his isolation, even in this vibrant city. He's awkward in crowds, too earnest, too intense. Other artists respect his passion, but keep their distance. He longs for connection, for someone to see what he sees. But Paris, for all its energy, leaves him lonely. Let's ground this in history. In the 1882nd, Paris was the epicenter of the art world, with Impressionism and Post-Impressionism challenging traditional notions of painting. The city's salons and cafes were battlegrounds for new ideas, where artists like Monet and Degas redefined beauty. Historians still argue whether Vincent fully embraced Impressionism or used it as a springboard for his own emotional style. Was he an Impressionist or something entirely his own? The debate persists, but his Paris years undeniably opened his eyes to color and light. For a quirky tidbit, Vincent once got into a heated cafe argument about art and accidentally spilled wine all over his own sketchbook. He didn't cry over it. Instead, he laughed and called it a new technique, vino painting. It's a fleeting glimpse of his humor, a reminder that even in his intensity, he could find lightness. You can't help but chuckle, picturing him trying to salvage his soggy sketches with a grin. As you leave Vincent's Paris studio, you see him packing his bags. The city's noise, its pace, its endless stimulation, it's too much. His health is fraying, his nerves raw. It craves peace, space, sunlight. You overhear him tell Theo, "I need to go south to find the light I see in my dreams." He's heading to Arles, a small town in Provence, chasing a vision of warmth and simplicity. You feel the excitement in his voice, but also the fragility. Paris has changed him. His art is bolder, his colors brighter, his brushstrokes freer. But it's also left him drained, searching for something quieter, something true. As he boards the train south, you know he's carrying more than paint and canvas. He's carrying a dream, a hope that Arles will be the sanctuary he needs. The artist is emerging, stronger than ever, but so is the shadow of his struggles. You wave him off, wondering what the sunlit south will bring. You're stepping off a train into Arles, a sun-drenched town in the south of France, in February 1888. The air smells of lavender and olive trees, and the mistral wind tugs at your clothes as you follow Vincent van Gogh, now 35, through the cobblestone streets. He's left the chaos of Paris behind, chasing a dream of light, peace, and a place to call his own. His face is gaunt, his red beard patchy, but there's a spark in his eyes, a hunger for something new. You sense it as he walks, his easel slung over his shoulder. Arles is more than a new setting. It's a fresh start, a canvas for his grandest vision yet. You're here to watch him build his dream of an artist's haven, the Yellow House, and to see how hope and solitude collide in the Provençal sun. The town is quieter than Paris, its streets lined with stone houses and fields stretching toward violet mountains. You see Vincent pause by a wheat field, the golden stalks swaying, and he breathes deeply, like he's drinking in the light itself. He rents a small house with lemon-yellow walls, modest but glowing in the sun, and you can feel his excitement as he calls it the Yellow House. It's not just a home, it's the heart of his dream, a studio of the South, a place where artists can live, work, and inspire each other. You watch him scrub the floors, hang curtains, and arrange his few belongings with care, as if preparing a sanctuary. He writes to Theo, his voice in the letters almost trembling. This will be a place for artists to create, to belong. You sense the weight of that word, belong, for a man who's always been an outsider. You follow Vincent as he explores Arles, his paintbrush never far from his hand. The town is alive with color, orchards blooming pink and white, skies so blue they seem to hum, sunflowers nodding in the fields. He paints with a feverish energy, his brushstrokes bold and swirling, capturing the heat of the sun, the bend of a tree, the pulse of the landscape. You stand behind him as he sets up his easel by the Rhone River, the water glittering under a starry sky. His paintings aren't just scenes, they're emotions, each stroke a piece of his heart. You can almost feel the warmth of the canvas, the way he makes the ordinary glow. He's not copying nature, he's translating it, turning wheat fields into waves of gold, skies into dreams. Vincent's dream of the Yellow House isn't just about painting, it's about community. You see him write letters to artists he met in Paris, Gauguin, Bernard, Lautrec, begging them to join him. He imagines them working side by side, sharing ideas, breaking bread under the Provençal stars. You notice how his face lights up when he talks about it, but there's a fragility there too, a fear that no one will come. For now, he's alone, painting to fill the silence. You watch him create sunflowers, a series of vibrant bouquets in simple vases, their yellow petals bursting against green backgrounds. He paints them to decorate the house, to welcome the artists he hopes will arrive. You can't help but smile at the optimism in those flowers, their bright faces a reflection of Vincent's hope. But solitude creeps in. You walk with Vincent through Arles's cafes, where locals eye him warily. He's a stranger here, with his Dutch accent and tattered clothes, too intense for small talk. You see him try to connect, offering sketches to a barkeep or chatting with a farmer about the harvest. But he's awkward, his words spilling out too fast or not at all. The townsfolk call him the Mad Painter, and you feel the sting of their whispers. Vincent pretends not to care, but you notice him linger alone at night, staring at the stars, his pipe unlit in his hand. He writes to Theo, "I am so alone, but the work keeps me going." You sense the tension building, the way his dream of community battles the reality of his isolation. Let's ground this in history. Arles in 1888 was a sleepy Provençal town, far from the artistic hub of Paris, but its vibrant landscapes and clear light made it a magnet for artists seeking inspiration. Vincent's idea of an artist's colony was influenced by the communal ideals of the time, as artists like the pre-Raphaelites in England sought similar creative havens. Historians still argue whether Vincent's Studio of the South was a visionary idea doomed by his own instability or a practical plan sabotaged by circumstance. Did he overestimate his ability to lead, or was the world just not ready for his vision? The debate lingers, but his passion for the idea was undeniable. Here's a quirky tidbit. Vincent, in his excitement to furnish the Yellow House, bought a set of mismatched chairs, each one a different color, because he thought it would make the place feel alive. He laughed to Theo about how the chairs looked like a band of misfit artists themselves. It's such a Vincent move, finding beauty in the odd and imperfect, even in furniture. You can't help but chuckle, imagining him arranging those chairs with the same care he gave his canvases. As you leave the yellow house, Vincent is still painting, still dreaming. His work is growing bolder, his colors more vivid, his brushstrokes more confident. You see him finish Cafe Terrace at night, the warm glow of the cafe spilling onto the cobblestones, stars twinkling above. It's a painting that feels like a hug, a moment of peace in a restless life. But you also see the cracks forming. His health is fragile, his loneliness heavy. He's waiting for Gauguin, for anyone, to join his dream. You feel the hope in his heart, but also the fear that it might not be enough. Arles is giving him light, but it's also testing him, pushing him to the edge of his brilliance and his breaking point. As you step away, the yellow house glows in the dusk, a beacon of Vincent's dreams. But you wonder how long it can hold against the shadows gathering inside him. You're in Arles, Provence, in the summer of 1888, standing under a blazing sun that turns the fields into seas of gold and green. Vincent van Gogh, now 35, is painting with a ferocity that matches the heat, his easel planted in the earth like a flag. The yellow house, his lemon-colored dream, is his home base, but you find him more often outside, chasing the light across orchards, wheat fields, and starry skies. His hands are stained with paint, his straw hat frayed, and his eyes burn with a mix of joy and desperation. You're here to watch him create some of his most iconic works, like sunflowers, while the weight of solitude presses harder, threatening to dim the brilliance he's pouring onto his canvases. You follow Vincent through the fields, where the air hums with cicadas and smells of sun-warmed grass. He's painting sunflowers now, a series of still lifes that feel anything but still. You stand behind him as he arranges a bouquet in a simple clay vase, the yellow petals glowing like tiny suns against a turquoise backdrop. His brush moves fast, almost frantic, layering thick strokes of paint that seem to pulse with life. You can feel the intensity in his focus, the way he mutters to himself about capturing the soul of the flower. These sunflowers aren't just plants. They're Vincent's hope, his gift to the artists he dreams will join him in the yellow house. You see him step back, squinting, then smile a rare, unguarded moment as he says, "They're alive, aren't they?" And they are, radiant and raw, like Vincent himself. His days are filled with work, sunrise to sunset. You trail him to the Rhone River, where he paints Starry Night over the Rhone, the sky swirling with stars that seem to dance on the water. You watch him capture orchards in bloom, their pink and white blossoms trembling in the breeze, and wheat fields rippling under heavy clouds. His brushstrokes are bolder now, not just describing the world, but reshaping it. Skies twist, trees bend, colors sing. You can almost hear the canvas hum as he layers on thick gobs of paint. Yellows so bright they hurt, blues that feel like midnight. He's not painting what he sees, he's painting what he feels. And you feel it too. The joy, the urgency, the ache. But the loneliness is never far behind. You walk with Vincent through Arles' narrow streets, where locals watch him with suspicion. He's the strange Dutchman, always painting, always alone, his clothes patched and his face weathered beyond his years. You see him try to make friends, offering sketches to a cafe owner or chatting with a postman. But his intensity scares people off. He's too much, too loud when he's excited, too quiet when he's low. You overhear him tell Theo in a letter, "I paint to keep the emptiness away, but it's always there, waiting." You feel the weight of that emptiness, the way it lingers in the pauses between his brushstrokes, in the way he stares at the horizon like it might answer him. Vincent's health is slipping. You notice his hands tremble as he mixes paints, his meals skipped to save money for supplies. He drinks too much coffee, smokes his pipe endlessly, and sleeps only when exhaustion wins. Yet his output is staggering hundreds of paintings in a year, each one a burst of emotion. You see him finish The Bedroom, a simple scene of his room in the yellow house. But the colors, blue walls, yellow bed, green window, make it feel like a dream. It's a painting of peace, but you know Vincent rarely feels it. He's pouring everything into his art, as if he can paint his way out of the loneliness that clings to him like dust. Let's anchor this in history. In 1888, Arles was a rural backwater compared to Paris, but its vivid landscapes inspired a wave of artists seeking natural beauty. Vincent's work in this period marks the birth of post-impressionism, blending Impressionism's light with his own emotional intensity. Historians still argue whether Vincent's prolific output in Arles was a sign of creative genius or a desperate attempt to outrun his mental struggles. Was he painting to create or to survive? The debate continues, but his ability to turn ordinary scenes into emotional masterpieces is undeniable. Here's a quirky tidbit. Vincent once got so caught up painting a sunflower field that he forgot to eat for 2 days, only noticing when he fainted from hunger right in the middle of the field. He laughed it off to Theo, saying, "The flowers fed my soul, but my stomach wasn't impressed." It's a classic Vincent moment, his passion so all-consuming it drowns out everything else, even basic needs. You can't help but smile, picturing him sprawled among the sunflowers, paintbrush still in hand. You linger in the yellow house, where Vincent hangs his sunflowers to brighten the walls, hoping they'll welcome Paul Gauguin, who's promised to join him. You see the hope in his eyes, the way he arranges the paintings like offerings. He's still dreaming of his studio of the South, a place where artists will share ideas and create together. But you also see the cracks in that dream. The letters from Gauguin are vague, delayed, and Vincent's anxiety grows. He paints more, faster, as if the canvases can hold his hope together. You feel the tension building, the delicate balance between his brilliance and his fragility. Arles has given him light, color, and inspiration, but it's also amplifying his solitude. As you step away from the yellow house, the sunflowers glow in the evening light, but Vincent's alone, staring at the stars, waiting for a friend who may or may not come. The dream is alive, but it's fragile, and you wonder how much longer it can hold. You're still in Arles, in the autumn of 1888, where the Provençal sun is softening into golden hues, and the air carries the crisp edge of fall. Vincent van Gogh, now 35, is pacing the yellow house, his lemon-colored sanctuary, his eyes flickering with a mix of excitement and nerves. The sunflowers he painted to brighten the walls glow like beacons. But they're not just decoration, they're a welcome mat for Paul Gauguin, who's finally arriving to join Vincent's dream of an artist's colony. You follow Vincent as he prepares, his hands fidgety, his heart full of hope. This is the moment he's been waiting for, the start of his studio of the South. But you sense the tension building, a storm brewing beneath the surface, as two strong personalities collide in a space too small to hold them both. You watch Vincent bustle around the yellow house, sweeping the floors, arranging Gauguin's room with care. He's hung his sunflowers on the walls, their vibrant yellows a burst of optimism, and he's even bought a new mirror for Gauguin's space, a rare expense for a man who skips meals to afford paint. You see him write to Theo, his words spilling out. I want Gauguin to feel at home, to create something great here together. His excitement is infectious, but there's a fragility in it, a need for this to work that makes your chest tighten. Vincent's not just welcoming a friend. He's staking his dream on this collaboration, hoping Gauguin will see Arles as he does a paradise of light and inspiration. Gauguin arrives, tall and confident, his presence filling the small house. You see Vincent's face light up, his awkward smile breaking through as he shows Gauguin the studio, the paintings, the fields outside. At first, it's everything Vincent hoped for. You watch them paint side by side, their easels set up under olive trees or in the yellow house's cramped studio. Gauguin's work is bold, symbolic, with flat colors and strong lines, so different from Vincent's swirling, emotional strokes. They talk art endlessly, debating color, form, emotion. You overhear Vincent say, I paint what I feel. Paul, what the heart sees. Gauguin nods, but you catch his raised eyebrow, his cool detachment. He's here, but you sense he's not all in, not like Vincent, who pours his soul into every moment. The days turn into weeks, and you notice the cracks forming. Vincent is intense, emotional, his moods swinging from joy to anxiety. Gauguin is independent, proud, sometimes dismissive. You see them argue over small things, how to hang a canvas, whether to paint from life or imagination. Vincent wants collaboration, a shared vision. Gauguin wants space, his own path. You feel the tension in the yellow house, the air thick with unspoken frustrations. Vincent tries to keep it light, cooking meals, badly you note with a smile, sharing wine, talking late into the night. But Gauguin grows restless, talking of leaving, of needing freedom. You see Vincent's face fall when Gauguin mentions Paris or the tropics, his dream of a lasting community slipping away. Despite the strain, Vincent's painting reaches new heights. You watch him create the sower, a figure scattering seeds under a blazing sun, the colors so vivid you can almost feel the heat. He paints the night cafe, its red walls and green ceiling pulsing with unease, a reflection of the tension he's feeling. You stand beside him as he works, his brush moving faster, his colors bolder, as if he's trying to paint away the growing rift. Gauguin inspires him, pushes him, but also unsettles him. You notice Vincent's hands shake more now, his sleep fractured, his pipe always lit. He's pouring everything into his art, but you wonder how much he has left to give. Let's tie this to history. In 1888, the art world was shifting, with post-impressionism emerging as artists like Gauguin and Vincent explored emotion and symbolism over realism. Their time together in Arles is a famous chapter in art history, a clash of titans that produced some of Vincent's best work. Historians still argue whether Gauguin's influence helped Vincent's art evolve or pushed him toward his later breakdown. Was Gauguin a catalyst for genius or a trigger for instability? The debate lingers, but the paintings from this period, vibrant, emotional, alive, speak for themselves. Here's a quirky tidbit. Vincent, in a burst of enthusiasm, once tried to teach Gauguin a Dutch folk song, butchering the tune so badly that Gauguin laughed until he choked on his wine. Vincent joined in, calling himself the worst bard in Arles. It's a fleeting moment of lightness, a reminder that even in his intensity, Vincent could laugh at himself. You can't help but grin, imagining the two of them, tipsy and giggling, in the yellow house's candlelit glow. As you linger in Arles, the air grows heavier. You see Vincent's anxiety spike when Gauguin talks of leaving, his letters to Theo filled with worry. If he goes, what's the point of all this? He paints more, faster, as if the canvases can hold the dream together. You watch him finish The Red Vineyard, a glowing scene of workers in a field, the only painting he'll ever sell in his lifetime. It's beautiful, but you feel the strain behind it, the way Vincent's clinging to his art as his world frays. Gauguin's presence has lit a fire in him, but it's also burning him out. The yellow house, once a beacon of hope, feels like a pressure cooker now. You step away, the sun setting over Arles, the fields golden but the mood dark. Vincent's dream is still alive, but it's teetering, and you know something's about to break. You're in Arles, late December 1888, and the yellow house, once a glowing symbol of Vincent van Gogh's dreams, feels like a tinderbox. The air is sharp with the chill of winter, but the tension inside is hotter, heavier, as Vincent, now 35, and Paul Gauguin navigate their crumbling collaboration. You follow Vincent through these final days of his dream, his footsteps quick and uneven on the cobblestone streets, his eyes shadowed with worry. The studio of the South, meant to be a haven for artists, is unraveling, and Vincent with it. You're here to witness the breaking point, the night that changes everything, when Vincent's inner storm spills over in a moment of shocking desperation. The days are short now, the Provençal sun sinking early, but Vincent's painting never stops. You watch him in the yellow house, his brush flying across canvases, creating works like The Chair, a simple wooden seat glowing with yellow against a blue wall, radiating both peace and unease. Gauguin paints too, but you notice the distance between them growing. Their arguments, once about art, now feel personal. Gauguin's cool arrogance grates on Vincent's raw sensitivity. You overhear Gauguin snap, "Your colors are too wild, Vincent. Where's the control?" Vincent fires back, "Control? I paint what I feel." The words hang in the air, sharp as the mistral wind outside. You see Vincent's hands clench, his face flushed, as Gauguin talks of leaving for Paris. The dream of the studio of the South is slipping away, and Vincent feels it like a physical wound. You trail them to a cafe one evening, the air thick with tobacco smoke and the clink of glasses. Vincent tries to keep things light, offering Gauguin a sketch, but Gauguin's distracted, his eyes on the door. You feel Vincent's desperation, the way he leans forward, talking too fast about art, about Arles, about staying. Gauguin barely responds, and you see Vincent's hope dim, his shoulders slumping. He's been painting for Gauguin, for the dream, but now he's painting against the fear of being alone again. His health is fraying sleepless nights, too much wine, meals skipped for paint. You notice his hands tremble more, his voice cracking when he speaks. He writes to Theo, "I'm afraid he'll leave, and it will all be for nothing." The breaking point comes on the 23rd of December. You're in the yellow house, the candles flickering, casting shadows on the sunflower paintings. The argument starts small, something about a brushstroke, a color choice, but it escalates fast. Gauguin's voice is cold, cutting, and Vincent's is loud, pleading. You feel the air tighten, the room too small for their clashing egos. Gauguin storms out, his coat flapping as he heads into the night. Vincent follows, his steps unsteady, his mind spiraling. Stories differ here. Some say he carried a razor. Others say he shouted Gauguin's name. But you see him stop in the street, alone, the stars above swirling like his thoughts. He turns back to the yellow house, his face a mask of anguish, and you know something terrible is coming. Inside, Vincent is alone, the silence deafening. You watch, heart pounding, as he takes a razor and, in a moment of raw despair, cuts off part of his left ear. The act is quick, brutal, the blood staining his hands, his shirt. He wraps the severed piece in paper, his movements mechanical, and stumbles out into the night to a nearby brothel, where he hands it to a woman named Rachel, muttering something incoherent. You see him collapse, the world spinning around him, and you feel the weight of his pain, his fear, his unraveling mind. The next morning, he's found unconscious, blood-soaked, and rushed to the hospital. The townsfolk gather, whispering, "The mad painter has lost his mind." Gauguin, shaken, leaves for Paris, never to see Vincent again. You stand by Vincent's hospital bed, where he lies pale, bandaged, his eyes distant. He's alive, but barely, his body weak from blood loss, his mind fractured. He cries without knowing why, his voice a whisper. What have I done? You feel the ache of his confusion, the shame in his letters to Theo, who rushes to his side. Yet, even in this darkness, Vincent reaches for his sketchbook. You watch him draw the hospital courtyard, the lines shaky but alive, a small act of defiance against his own despair. He paints self-portrait with bandaged ear, his face calm but haunted, the bandage a stark white against his green coat. It's not just a portrait, it's a testament to survival, to creating through pain. Let's ground this in history. In 1888, mental health was poorly understood, and Vincent's breakdown in Arles aligns with the era's limited grasp of conditions like bipolar disorder or epilepsy, which some believe he suffered from. The incident with his ear shocked the art world and fueled myths of the mad artist. Historians still argue whether Gauguin's departure triggered Vincent's act or if it was the culmination of years of mental strain. Was it a cry for help, a moment of madness, or both? The debate persists, but the paintings from this period, raw, emotional, brilliant, show a man creating through his collapse. For a quirky tidbit, before the ear incident, Vincent and Gauguin tried to paint each other's portraits, but gave up when they couldn't agree on who'd sit first. Vincent laughed, saying, "We're both too stubborn to pose." It's a fleeting moment of humor, a glimpse of their camaraderie before it shattered. You smile, imagining them bickering like kids over who gets to hold the brush. As you leave the hospital, Vincent is recovering, but Arles has changed. The townsfolk avoid him, the yellow house stands empty, and his dream of an artist's colony is dead. You see him sketch from his hospital window, capturing a garden, a bench, a sliver of light. He's broken, yes, but he's still Vincent, still reaching for beauty in the wreckage. You feel the weight of his loneliness, but also the strength of his art, a lifeline he clings to even now. The path ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Vincent van Gogh, even at his lowest, is still an artist, and his story is far from over. You're in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, May 1889, standing outside the St. Paul de Mausolée Asylum, a former monastery surrounded by olive groves and cypress trees. The air smells of pine and earth, and the Provençal sun casts long shadows across the stone walls. Vincent van Gogh, now 36, has just admitted himself here, his body frail and his mind battered after the breakdown in Arles. You see him walk through the iron gates, his red hair dulled, his bandaged ear hidden under a hat. The yellow house, his dream of an artist's haven, lies abandoned, and Gauguin is gone. Yet, as you follow Vincent into this quiet, confined world, you sense a flicker of resilience. This is no ordinary asylum. Stay, you're about to witness. Vincent creates some of his greatest works, painting through pain in a place meant to hold him together. The asylum is both prison and sanctuary. You walk with Vincent through its cool corridors, the walls echoing with distant footsteps and the occasional cry of another patient. His room is small, with barred windows and a single bed, but the staff allow him a studio space, a rare privilege. You see him set up his easel, his hands steadier now with purpose, though his eyes still carry the weight of Arles. He's not here to rest, he's here to work. The asylum's gardens, with their irises and roses, become his first subjects. You watch him paint irises, the flower's purple petals curling against a yellow background, each stroke vibrant yet controlled. It's as if he's pouring his chaos into order, his pain into beauty. You feel the intensity in his focus, the way he mutters, "The colors must sing, even here." Vincent's days are structured meals, rest, medication, but his art defies the routine. You follow him to the asylum's courtyard, where he paints cypress trees twisting toward a sky that seems to swirl with his thoughts. His brushstrokes are bolder, more rhythmic, as if he's dancing with the canvas. You see him create the olive trees, the gnarled branches and silvery leaves glowing under a turbulent blue sky. It's not just a scene, it's a feeling, a mix of peace and unrest. He writes to Theo, "I'm painting to keep the darkness at bay." You sense the truth in those words. Art is his lifeline, the one thing holding him together when his mind threatens to unravel. His mental health is a roller coaster. You notice moments of clarity, when he laughs softly at a bird in the garden or sketches a nurse's kind face. But there are darker days, when he stares blankly, lost in hallucinations, or weeps without knowing why. You see him clutch his head during an episode, his voice a whisper. "It's like a storm in my mind." Once, in a desperate act, he swallows paint and turpentine, leaving him weak and shaken. You feel the ache of his struggle, the way he fights to create, even as his mind betrays him. Yet, every time he recovers, he returns to his easel, as if painting is the only way to prove he's still here. You stand by his window as he paints the Starry Night, one of his most iconic works. The sky is alive, swirling with blues and yellows, stars pulsing like heartbeats over a quiet village. You can almost hear the canvas hum, the way it captures both chaos and calm. Vincent calls it a failure, saying, "It's not what I saw, but what I felt." You disagree, and so will the world. This painting, born in the confines of an asylum, is a masterpiece of emotion, a testament to his ability to find light in darkness. You feel a pang of awe, knowing this moment of creation comes from a man at his most fragile. Let's ground this in history. In 1889, asylums like St. Paul were often more about containment than treatment. But Vincent's access to a studio was unusual, reflecting the era's growing interest in art as therapy. His time in Saint-Rémy coincides with a shift in how mental illness was viewed, though effective treatments were decades away. Historians still argue whether the asylum gave Vincent the stability to create, or if his art was a rebellion against its constraints. Was St. Paul a refuge or a cage? The debate lingers, but the nearly 150 paintings he produced here, many now iconic, show a man creating through his pain. For a quirky tidbit, Vincent once painted a cypress tree so obsessively that he tied his easel to it during a windy day, only for the rope to snap, sending his canvas tumbling into the dirt. He laughed, saying, "The tree wanted to keep my painting." It's a small human moment, a reminder that even in his darkest times, Vincent could find humor in the struggle. You smile, imagining him dusting off the canvas, undeterred. As you leave the asylum's gardens, Vincent is still painting, his output staggering despite his episodes. You see him finish Wheat Field with Reaper, the golden field glowing under a turbulent sky, a figure cutting grain like a quiet act of defiance. His letters to Theo are filled with hope and despair, describing colors, emotions, and the fear that he's losing himself. You feel the weight of his duality, a man broken, yet creating, lost, yet finding beauty. The asylum has given him a space to paint, but it can't quiet the storm inside. As you step away, the cypress trees sway in the breeze, and Vincent's brush keeps moving, a quiet rebellion against the darkness closing in. You're still in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, in the summer of 1889, inside the stone walls of the St. Paul de Mausolée Asylum. The cicadas hum outside, and the scent of lavender drifts through the barred windows. Vincent van Gogh, now 36, is thinner, his face etched with lines that seem older than his years, his bandaged ear a constant reminder of Arles. Yet, as you stand in his small studio, paint cans scattered like fallen stars, you see a man who refuses to surrender to his demons. His brush is his weapon, and he's wielding it with a ferocity that feels almost holy. You're here to witness the birth of the Starry Night, a painting that will become one of the most iconic in history, born from a mind teetering on the edge of chaos. You watch Vincent at his easel, his eyes fixed on the view from his window. The asylum's garden stretches below, with cypress trees reaching like dark flames toward the sky. Beyond, the hills of Provence roll under a vast, restless night. He's not painting what he sees in the daylight, he's painting what he feels in the quiet hours, when the world sleeps and his mind races. You see him mix blues, deep and endless, with swirls of white and yellow, creating a sky that pulses with movement. The stars aren't just points of light, they're alive, burning, spiraling like dreams or nightmares. You feel the energy in his brushstrokes, each one a wave, a cry, a prayer. The village below, with its soft rooftops and glowing windows, feels calm, but the sky above is anything but its Vincent's inner world, laid bare on canvas. He works late into the night, the candlelight flickering across his face, casting shadows that dance with his thoughts. You hear him whisper, "The sky is speaking, but I don't know what it says." His strokes are fast, almost frantic, layering thick paint that seems to breathe. The cypress tree in the foreground twists upward, a dark anchor linking Earth to the cosmic swirl above. You can almost feel the wind in the painting, the way it pulls at the stars, the way it mirrors the storm in Vincent's mind. When he steps back, he shakes his head, muttering, "It's not right. It's not enough." You want to tell him he's wrong, that this canvas will outlive him, will speak to millions, but he can't hear you. To him, the Starry Night is a failure, a fleeting attempt to capture something unnameable. You follow Vincent through his days in the asylum, where routine battles chaos. He paints obsessively, producing works like irises and olive trees, each one a blend of beauty and turmoil. You see him in the garden, sketching flowers with a tenderness that contrasts his inner storms. But the episodes still come sudden, terrifying moments when his mind clouds over and he stares blankly or weeps without cause. You watch him grip his easel during one such moment, as if it's the only thing keeping him upright. He writes to Theo, "The work saves me, but it's not enough to stop the darkness." You feel the weight of those words, the way art is both his salvation and his burden. The asylum staff watch him closely, some with pity, others with curiosity. You overhear a nurse say, "He paints like he's possessed, but his eyes are so sad." They let him wander the grounds when he's well, and you follow him to the wheat fields, where he paints wheat field with cypresses, the golden stalks swaying under a sky that echoes the starry night swirls. His colors are vivid, his lines rhythmic, but there's an urgency in them, as if he's racing against time. You notice his hands tremble more now, his health worn down by sleepless nights and poor food. Yet he keeps painting, as if each canvas is a battle he must win. Let's ground this in history. In 1889, asylums were often grim, but St. Paul was progressive for its time, allowing patients like Vincent to engage in activities like painting. The Starry Night emerged during a period when artists were pushing beyond Impressionism, exploring emotion and symbolism in ways that would define post-Impressionism. Historians still argue whether the Starry Night reflects Vincent's mental turmoil or a spiritual vision of the universe. Is it a cry of despair or a hymn to beauty? The debate continues, but its universal resonance, its ability to make viewers feel the weight of existence, is undeniable. For a quirky tidbit, Vincent once tried to paint the Starry Night during a windy night outside, only to have his canvas blown over, splattering paint on his shoes. He laughed, saying, "The stars are mocking me, but I'll get them yet." It's a small moment of defiance, a glimpse of his stubborn humor, even in the face of struggle. You can't help but smile, picturing him wiping blue paint off his boots, undeterred. As you linger in Vincent's studio, you see him finish the Starry Night, setting it aside with a sigh. He doesn't know it will hang in museums, inspire songs, or become a symbol of human longing. To him, it's just another attempt, another piece of his soul laid bare. You feel the intensity of his creation, the way he's poured his pain, his awe, his hope into this swirling sky. The asylum holds him, but his art sets him free, if only for a moment. You step away, the stars outside mirroring the ones on his canvas, and you know Vincent's fight isn't over. He's still painting, still searching, still reaching for the light in the darkness. You're still in the St. Paul de Mausolée Asylum in St. Remy de Provence, late 1889, where the air is thick with the scent of olive trees and the distant hum of cicadas. Vincent van Gogh, now 36, is a fragile figure, his body worn thin by months of mental turmoil, his bandaged ear a silent scar of Arles. But as you stand in his small studio, surrounded by canvases glowing with color, you see a man clinging to life through his art. His hands, though shaky, move with purpose, and his eyes, though tired, burn with a quiet defiance. You're here to witness Vincent in a fleeting moment of recovery, painting with relentless energy while the shadows of his struggles loom ever closer. The asylum's routine meals, rest, medication, offers Vincent a fragile stability, and he seizes it. You watch him at his easel, painting the olive grove, where gnarled trees twist under a sky of swirling blues and greens. The brush strokes are rhythmic, almost musical, as if he's conducting the landscape. You feel the intensity in his work, the way he captures not just the trees but their spirit resilient, weathered, alive. He paints the asylum's garden, its irises and roses, with a tenderness that makes you ache. Each canvas is a victory, a moment where he outruns the darkness in his mind. You overhear him tell a nurse, "If I can paint, I can breathe." And you see it. Every stroke is a breath, a pulse, a reason to keep going. His output is staggering. You follow him through the asylum grounds, where he sets up his easel under cypress trees or by wheat fields. In just months, he creates nearly 150 works. Wheat field with reaper, the bedroom, Pietà, after Delacroix, each one a blend of peace and chaos. You notice how his colors are brighter now, his yellows fiercer, his blues deeper, as if he's squeezing every ounce of life from the paint. But the episodes still come, sudden and cruel. You see him one day, frozen mid-stroke, his eyes glassy, his hands trembling as a hallucination grips him. He collapses, muttering, "The stars are too loud." The staff carry him to his room, and you feel the weight of his fragility, the way his mind betrays the brilliance of his hands. When he recovers, he's back at it, as if nothing happened. You watch him paint the garden of St. Paul Asylum, the flowers glowing under a soft sky, the lines steady despite the storm he's just weathered. He writes to Theo, his letters a mix of hope and fear. "I'm better, but it's like walking on thin ice." You sense the precarious balance. He's struck art, keeps him afloat, but the cracks are spreading. He's aware of it, too. You see him stare at his canvases, searching for something peace, maybe, or proof that he's still himself. He paints self-portraits, his face gaunt but resolute, his eyes piercing, as if daring the world to look back. Vincent's connection to Theo is his anchor. You read his letters, pages of cramped handwriting, describing colors, emotions, and the view from his window. He sends Theo sketches, small gifts of his world, and you feel the love between them, unspoken but unbreakable. Theo sends money, encouragement, and news of the art world, where Vincent's work is starting to catch eyes. Though he doesn't believe it, you see him shake his head, saying, "They'll never understand." But he keeps painting, not for fame, but because it's all he has. You notice his health, slipping his teeth loose, his stomach weak from poor food and too much coffee. Yet his art grows stronger, as if his body's frailty fuels his creativity. Let's ground this in history. In 1889, mental health care was rudimentary, and asylums like St. Paul often focused on containment over cure. Vincent's ability to paint was a rare privilege, reflecting an emerging belief in creative outlets as therapy. His prolific output in Saint-Remy aligns with a peak in post-impressionism, as artists like Gauguin and Cézanne pushed emotional expression over realism. Historians still argue whether Vincent's asylum paintings were a product of his mental instability or a triumph over it. Did his breakdowns fuel his genius, or did his art hold them at bay? The debate lingers, but the sheer volume and power of his work suggest a man fighting to create against all odds. For a quirky tidbit, Vincent once tried to befriend a stray cat in the asylum garden, leaving bits of bread to lure it, only for the cat to steal his paintbrush and run off. He laughed to Theo, "Even the cats here don't trust me." It's a small, endearing moment, a reminder that Vincent's warmth could shine through even in confinement. You smile, picturing him chasing a cat through the roses, his laughter rare but genuine. As you walk through the asylum's quiet halls, Vincent is still painting, his canvases piling up like a diary of his soul. You see him finish The Reaper, a lone figure in a golden field, the sky heavy with meaning. It's not just a painting, it's Vincent's life working alone, cutting through the chaos, hoping for harvest. You feel the strength in his art, but also the fragility of his recovery. The asylum has given him space to create, but it can't heal the wounds inside. As you step away, the olive trees sway outside, and Vincent's brush keeps moving, a quiet act of defiance against the darkness, waiting to reclaim him. You're in Auvers-sur-Oise, a quiet village north of Paris, in May 1890. The air is soft with spring, carrying the scent of blooming poplars and freshly turned earth. Vincent van Gogh, now 37, steps off the train, his body frail but his eyes sharp, searching the green fields and winding paths for inspiration. After a year in the St. Paul Asylum, he's left its stone walls behind, hoping this peaceful place will steady his mind. You follow him, his paint-stained bag slung over his shoulder, as he settles into a new chapter, one filled with urgent, vivid brushstrokes and a growing shadow of despair. You're here to witness Vincent's final burst of creativity, where every canvas feels like a race against time. Auvers is a world away from Arles' blazing sun or Saint-Rémy cloistered gardens. You walk with Vincent through the village, its thatched cottages and golden wheat fields glowing under wide skies. He's under the care of Dr. Paul Gachet, a physician with a love for art and a melancholy air. You see Vincent size him up, his lips twitching in a half smile as he writes to Theo. He's sicker than I am, I think. Gachet's home is filled with paintings, and Vincent feels a spark of connection, though you notice his wariness. He's been burned by hope before. Still, he rents a small room at the Revue Inn, its walls bare, but for his growing stack of canvases. You sense his determination to make the most of this fresh start, to paint as if every day might be his last. Vincent throws himself into work with a ferocity that takes your breath away. You follow him to the fields, where he paints wheat field with crows, the sky a turbulent blue, the wheat a sea of gold, black crows scattering like omens. The brushstrokes are wild, almost desperate, the paths in the painting leading nowhere. You feel the weight of it, the way it mirrors Vincent's own uncertainty. He paints the church at Auvers, its spire twisting slightly, as if seen through a dream, the colors vivid but unsettling. You watch him capture poplar trees, their leaves shimmering in the wind, and portraits of Gachet's daughter, her face soft but serious. In just 70 days, he creates over 70 works, each one pulsing with life, each one heavy with emotion. You can almost hear his thoughts. I have to say it all now, before it's too late. You notice Vincent's connection to Theo deepening, even from a distance. He writes long letters, describing the colors of the fields, the feel of the brush in his hand, the quiet of Auvers. Theo, now married with a newborn son, sends money and encouragement, but you see Vincent's guilt creeping in. He worries he's a burden, his dependence on Theo a weight he can't shake. You read his words to Theo. I'm afraid I'm costing you too much, in every way. You feel the ache in those lines, the love mixed with shame. Vincent paints portrait of Dr. Gachet, the doctor's face weary, his eyes mirroring Vincent's own sadness. It's not just a portrait, it's a reflection of two men wrestling with their demons. His health is fragile, his mind a tightrope. You see moments of joy, Vincent laughing as he sketches a child playing in the street, or pausing to watch a sunset, his face soft with awe. But the darkness is never far. You catch him staring into space, his hands idle, his eyes clouded with thoughts he can't share. The episodes from Saint Remy haven't vanished. They lurk, waiting for a crack to slip through. You overhear him tell Gachet, "Sometimes I feel like I'm painting with borrowed time." The words hang heavy, and you sense the urgency in his work, the way each canvas feels like a final statement. Let's ground this in history. Auvers-sur-Oise, in 1890, was a haven for artists like Pissarro and Cézanne, drawn to its rural beauty. Vincent's time here marks the peak of his post-impressionist style, blending vivid color with emotional depth. Historians still argue whether his Auvers paintings reflect a newfound hope or a deepening despair. Were they a celebration of life or a farewell to it? The debate persists, but the intensity of his work, urgent, vibrant, raw, suggests a man pouring everything he has left into his art. For a quirky tidbit, Vincent once tried to paint a field during a sudden rainstorm, rigging a makeshift umbrella from his coat and a stick. It collapsed, soaking him and his canvas, and he laughed to Gachet, "The sky's painting me back." It's a fleeting glimpse of his stubborn humor, a man who could find lightness even as the world weighed him down. You smile, picturing him drenched, grinning, his canvas a soggy mess, but his spirit unbroken. As you walk through Auvers fields, Vincent's paintings pile up, each one a burst of color and feeling. You see him finish tree roots, a chaotic tangle of roots and earth, as if he's digging into his own soul. His brushstrokes are faster now, almost frantic, as if he knows time is slipping away. You feel the tension in him, the way he's balancing on the edge of brilliance and collapse. Theo visits when he can, and you see the brothers sit quietly, their bond stronger than words. But Vincent's fear of being a burden, of losing his mind, grows heavier. You leave him in a wheat field, his easel steady but his heart unsteady, painting under a sky that feels too big, too close. The light in Auvers is beautiful, but Vincent's shadow is growing, and you know the end is near. You're in Auvers-sur-Oise, July 1890, walking through golden wheat fields under a sky heavy with summer heat. Vincent van Gogh, now 37, is a solitary figure, his straw hat tilted against the sun, his paint-stained bag slung over his shoulder. The village is quiet, its cobblestone streets and thatched cottages, a world away from the chaos of his past. But you sense a storm inside him. His paintings, vivid, urgent, pulsing with life, are piling up, yet his eyes carry a weight that no canvas can lighten. You're here to witness the final days of Vincent's life, the moment when despair overtakes his relentless drive to create, leading to a choice that will end his story in tragedy. You follow Vincent through the fields, where he paints with a feverish intensity. His latest work, Wheat Field with Crows, is a storm of color, golden wheat under a turbulent blue sky, black crows scattering like fragments of his thoughts. The paths in the painting twist, leading nowhere, and you feel the unease in every brushstroke, as if Vincent is painting his own uncertainty. He works fast, his hands steady despite the tremble you've noticed in quieter moments. You overhear him mutter, "It's all so beautiful, but it's not enough." His voice is soft, almost lost in the rustle of the wheat, and you sense the exhaustion behind it, not just of body, but of spirit. Vincent's days are a blur of painting and solitude. You see him at the Revue Inn, where he rents a small room, its walls bare, but for his drying canvases. He eats alone, picking at bread and cheese, his appetite dulled by worry. His letters to Theo, his brother and lifeline, are frequent, but tinged with a new tone gratitude laced with guilt. You read his words. "I'm afraid I'm a burden, Theo. Your family deserves better than my weight." Theo, now a father with a wife and child, sends money and reassurance. But you see Vincent's fear growing. He paints portrait of Dr. Gachet a second time, the doctor's face weary, his eyes mirroring Vincent's own sadness. It's as if he's painting his own reflection, a man on the edge. You notice the cracks widening, Vincent's moments of joy sketching a child's smile, laughing with Gachet over a glass of wine, are fleeting. More often, you catch him staring into the distance, his pipe unlit, his hands idle. The episodes from Saint-Remy haven't stopped. They come quietly now, like shadows, slipping through his mind. You see him pause mid-stroke one day, his eyes glassy, his breath uneven, as if the world is tilting. He shakes it off, but you feel the fragility, the way he's holding himself together with paint and willpower. Dr. Gachet watches him closely, prescribing rest, but Vincent ignores it, saying, "Rest is for the dead." You wince at the words, sensing their weight. Then comes the 27th of July, 1890. You follow Vincent into a wheat field, the same one he's painted so many times, its golden stalks swaying under a darkening sky. He carries a revolver, borrowed or bought, no one's sure. You want to call out, to stop him, but you can only watch as he stands alone, the crows circling above. His face is calm but distant, his eyes fixed on the horizon. No one knows exactly what he's thinking. Maybe he believes his work is done. Maybe the sadness is too heavy to carry. He raises the gun, presses it to his chest, and pulls the trigger. The shot is muffled by the wind, and he staggers, falling into the wheat. You feel the ache of that moment, the silence that follows, the weight of a life cut short. Vincent doesn't die immediately. You follow him as he stumbles back to the Revue Inn, blood soaking his shirt, his face pale but composed. The innkeeper finds him, calls for help, and soon Dr. Gachet is there, his hands shaking as he tries to stop the bleeding. Theo is summoned, rushing from Paris. You sit by Vincent's bedside, where he lies in his small room, the air heavy with the smell of blood and paint. He's calm, smoking his pipe, speaking softly to Theo. You hear his final words, whispered through pain. The sadness will last forever. You feel the truth of it, the way it hangs in the room, a confession of a life lived too deeply. 2 days later, on the 29th of July, Vincent dies in Theo's arms, the brothers' bond unbroken, even in the end. Let's ground this in history. In 1890, suicide was poorly understood, often stigmatized, and Vincent's death shocked the small art world that knew him. His final works in oeuvres, with their intense colors and chaotic lines, reflect the emotional turmoil of post-Impressionism's peak. Historians still argue whether Vincent's act was a moment of despair or a deliberate choice to end his suffering. Did he feel he'd said all he could through his art? Or was the weight of his mental illness too much? The debate lingers, but his final paintings, urgent, vivid, raw, suggest a man who gave everything he had. For a quirky tidbit, just days before his death, Vincent tried to paint a quick sketch of a sparrow on a cafe napkin, only for the wind to snatch it away. He laughed, saying, Even the birds don't want my art. It's a bittersweet moment, his humor shining through even as his world darkened. You smile, imagining him chasing that napkin, his laughter a fleeting echo in the Auver's breeze. As you leave Vincent's bedside, the room feels smaller, the air heavier. Theo weeps quietly, holding his brother's hand. The wheat fields outside are still, the crows gone. Vincent's canvases, stacked against the wall, glow with a life he couldn't sustain. You feel the weight of his loss, but also the strength of what he left behind, paintings that will speak when he no longer can. His story isn't over, not yet. As you step away, the stars over Auver's twinkle, a quiet reminder of the light he chased, even in his darkest moment. You're in Auver-sur-Oise, late July 1890, standing in the dim light of the Revue Inn, where the air is heavy with grief. Vincent van Gogh has just taken his last breath, his body still in the small bed where he lay for 2 days after shooting himself in a wheat field. Theo, his younger brother, sits beside him, his face crumpled with sorrow, his hands clutching Vincent's paint-stained fingers. The room is quiet, save for the soft creak of the floorboards and the distant hum of summer outside. You're here to witness Theo's final moments with Vincent, and the beginning of a deeper tragedy, the unraveling of a man who carried his brother's dreams as his own. The wheat fields of Auvers still glow, but the light in Theo's world is fading fast. You watch Theo, now 33, as he lingers by Vincent's side, unwilling to let go. The brothers were more than family. They were each other's anchor, bound by letters, love, and a shared belief in Vincent's art. Theo's suit is rumpled from his rush from Paris, his eyes red from tears and sleepless nights. You see him pick up one of Vincent's sketches, a rough outline of a tree, and hold it like it's a piece of his brother's soul. He whispers, "You did it, Vincent. You made something true." You feel the weight of those words, the way they carry years of support, of sacrifice. Theo sent Vincent money for paint, for food, for survival, even when it strained his own young family. Now, with Vincent gone, you sense the void opening in Theo's heart. You follow Theo back to Paris, where he returns to his small apartment, his wife Johanna, and infant son waiting. The city hums with its usual chaos. Carriages clatter, cafes buzz, but Theo moves through it like a ghost. You see him unpack Vincent's paintings, dozens of them, rolled up or stacked in crates. He spreads them across the floor. Sunflowers, wheat fields, starry skies, each one glowing with Vincent's fire. You watch him trace the brush strokes, his fingers trembling as if he can still feel his brother's pulse in the paint. Johanna watches quietly, her face soft with understanding. She knows Theo's grief is more than loss. It's the weight of carrying Vincent's legacy alone. Theo's health, never strong, begins to falter. You notice him cough, a dry, persistent sound that worsens with the autumn chill. He's been battling illness for years, likely syphilis, a common affliction in the 19th century, with no real cure. You see him push through, going to his job as an art dealer, but his energy is gone. He writes letters to galleries, trying to show Vincent's work, but the rejections pile up. You overhear him tell Johanna, they don't see him yet, but they will. His voice is determined, but you feel the strain, the way grief and illness are eroding him. He spends nights sorting Vincent's letters, reading them over and over, as if they might bring his brother back. By January 1891, just 6 months after Vincent's death, Theo's condition worsens. You follow him to a hospital in Utrecht, where he's admitted for what doctors call nervous exhaustion and physical decline. You see him in a stark, white room, his face pale, his eyes distant, much like Vincent's in his final days. He speaks of Vincent, of the paintings, of the need to share them. You feel the tragedy of it. Theo, who gave everything to support his brother, is slipping away before the world can see what they built together. On the 25th of January, 1891, Theo dies, his body too weak to fight the illness, his heart too broken to carry on. You stand by his bedside, the air heavy with loss, and you realize the brothers are together again, not in life, but in eternity. Let's ground this in history. In 1890, medical care for chronic illnesses like syphilis was limited, and Theo's death, so soon after Vincent's, was a devastating blow to their family. The late 19th century was a time when mental and physical health were often intertwined in diagnosis, and Theo's decline was likely exacerbated by grief. Historians still argue whether Theo's death was primarily due to illness or if his heartbreak over Vincent played a decisive role. Did he die of a broken body or a broken spirit? The debate lingers, but his unwavering support for Vincent's art laid the foundation for its eventual recognition. For a quirky tidbit, Theo once tried to cheer Vincent up by sending him a brightly colored scarf, only for Vincent to use it as a makeshift canvas when he ran out of paper. Theobacy painting. Theo laughed, saying, "You've ruined a perfectly good scarf." It's a small, bittersweet story, a reminder of their bond, Theo giving, Vincent creating. You smile, imagining Vincent wrapping the scarf around his neck, paint smeared but proud. As you leave Theo's hospital room, you feel the weight of the brothers' story. Vincent's paintings, now in Johanna's care, are all that remain of their shared dream. You see her pack them carefully, her face set with quiet resolve. Theo's death is a second tragedy, but it's not the end. Johanna will carry the torch, ensuring Vincent's work finds its place in the world. You step away, the memory of Vincent's starry skies and Theo's quiet faith lingering like a soft glow. The brothers are gone, but their legacy is just beginning to rise. You're in Paris, 1891, standing in a small apartment filled with the faint smell of oil paint and old paper. The city hums outside, carriages rattling, voices calling, but inside, the air is heavy with grief. Theo van Gogh has just died, 6 months after his brother Vincent, leaving behind his widow, Johanna van Gogh Bonger, and their infant son, named Vincent, after his uncle. You watch Johanna, a young woman with steady eyes and a quiet strength, as she sorts through stacks of Vincent's paintings and letters. The canvases, sunflowers, wheat fields, starry skies, glow like embers in the dim room, but the world hasn't noticed them yet. You're here to witness Johanna's mission, a tireless effort to share Vincent's art and words, planting the seeds for a legacy that will outshine his tragedy. Johanna sits at a wooden table, Vincent's letters spread before her, hundreds of pages filled with his cramped handwriting. You see her trace the words, her fingers careful, as if they might crumble. These aren't just letters, they're Vincent's heart, his thoughts on color, beauty, pain, and hope. She reads of his struggles in Arles, his dreams for the Yellow House, his love for Theo. You feel the weight of her task. She's not just mourning her husband and brother-in-law. She's inheriting their shared vision. Theo believed in Vincent's art when no one else did. And now Johanna, only 28, takes up that belief. You watch her roll up a canvas of sunflowers, her hands gentle but firm, and you sense her resolve. She won't let Vincent's work fade into obscurity. You follow Johanna as she begins her quiet campaign. She contacts galleries, small ones at first, offering Vincent's paintings for exhibitions. You see her carry canvases through Paris streets, her dress catching the spring breeze, her face set against the skepticism of art dealers. Most dismiss Vincent's work too wild, too emotional, they say, but Johanna persists, her voice calm but unyielding. She organizes a small show in Amsterdam, then another in Paris, hanging Vincent's paintings alongside those of his contemporaries. You stand in a dimly lit gallery, watching a handful of visitors pause before the red vineyard, its glowing fields catching their eyes. A few nod, intrigued. Others walk past. Johanna doesn't flinch. You overhear her tell a friend, "They'll see him someday. I know they will." Her most powerful act is publishing Vincent's letters. You watch her transcribe them, page after page, her pen moving late into the night. She selects the ones that reveal Vincent's mind, his passion for art, his struggles with loneliness, his love for the world's beauty. You see her hesitate over the most painful passages, the ones about his breakdowns, but she includes them, knowing they're part of his truth. The first collection is published in 1893, a modest volume, but it's a revelation. You read alongside early readers, feeling the raw honesty of Vincent's words. "I want to touch people with my art. I want them to say, 'He feels deeply.'" The letters humanize him, turning the mad painter into a man of depth and sensitivity. You sense the shift. People are starting to listen. Johanna's work is slow, deliberate, but it's working. You follow her to London, where she moves with her son, seeking new audiences. She loans Vincent's paintings to small exhibitions, writes to critics, shares his story with anyone who'll listen. You see her at a gallery opening, her face lighting up as a young artist whispers, "Van Gogh saw the world differently." She nods, saying, "He saw what others couldn't." Her belief is unshakable, even as she juggles motherhood and financial strain. Theo left little money, and Vincent's paintings don't sell yet. But Johanna lives frugally, pouring every spare franc into promoting his work. You feel her quiet strength, the way she carries both brothers' dreams without complaint. Let's ground this in history. In the early 1892, the art world was shifting, with post-impressionism gaining traction as collectors began to appreciate its emotional depth. Johanna's efforts came at a pivotal moment, as galleries started to value unconventional artists. Historians still argue whether Johanna's persistence was driven by love for Theo, duty to Vincent, or a personal passion for art. Did she see herself as a widow, preserving a legacy, or an advocate shaping art history? The debate lingers, but her impact is undeniable. She turned Vincent from an unknown into an icon. For a quirky tidbit, Johanna once accidentally sent a grocer a sketch of Vincent's instead of a shopping list, only realizing when he returned it, saying, "I can't sell potatoes for this." She laughed, telling her son, "Your uncle's art is worth more than groceries, but not yet." It's a small moment of humor, a reminder of her warmth amid her mission. You smile, imagining her blushing as she retrieved the sketch, determined to keep going. As you leave Johanna's apartment, the paintings are still unsold, but the tide is turning. You see a critic linger over the starry night at a small exhibition, his face softening. Johanna's work is planting seeds, and though she won't live to see Vincent's full fame, you know her quiet mission will change the world. You step away, the letters and canvases glowing behind you, a testament to a woman who believed in a man the world had forgotten. You're in the early 20th century now, stepping into a world where the name Vincent van Gogh is beginning to ripple through galleries and cafes, no longer whispered only by a few. The streets of Paris hum with the energy of a new era. Automobiles rumble past horse-drawn carriages, and electric lights flicker in place of gas lamps. Johanna van Gogh, Theo's widow, is still tirelessly sharing Vincent's paintings and letters, her quiet mission gaining traction. You're here to witness the moment when the world starts to see Vincent not as a madman, but as a genius, his vibrant canvases and raw words finding their place in hearts and museums. The light he chased in life is finally breaking through. You walk into a small gallery in Amsterdam, 1905, where Johanna has organized an exhibition of Vincent's work. The room is modest, but the walls blaze with color. Sunflowers glows with its golden petals. The starry night swirls with cosmic energy. The potato eaters hums with quiet dignity. You see a small crowd, artists and critics mostly, pausing before the canvases. Their whispers carry a new tone, curiosity, awe, even reverence. A young painter murmurs, "He painted feelings, not just pictures." You catch Johanna nearby, her face calm, but her eyes bright with pride. She's not seeking credit, but you know this moment is hers as much as Vincent's. Her years of persistence, loaning paintings, publishing letters, writing to galleries, are paying off. The world is starting to listen. You follow the growing wave of interest to Paris, where Vincent's paintings appear in larger exhibitions. In 1901, the Bernheim June Gallery shows his work alongside Gauguin's and Cézanne's, and you see collectors linger, their eyes drawn to Vincent's bold colors and swirling lines. By 1910, his paintings are in London, Berlin, New York. You stand in a crowded gallery, watching a critic scribble notes about Café Terrace at night, its warm glow pulling him in. Van Gogh saw light where others saw shadow, he writes. You feel the shift. Vincent's art, once dismissed as crude, is now celebrated as visionary. Museums begin to acquire his works. The Red Vineyard, the only painting he sold in his lifetime, is joined by others fetching prices he could never have imagined. Johanna's publication of Vincent's letters fuels the fascination. You see readers in cafes, clutching the volumes, their faces softening as they read his words. I want to touch people with my art. The letters reveal a man who was not just a painter, but a poet of the soul, his thoughts on beauty and pain resonating across time. You overhear a student say, "He was so alone, but he speaks to me." Johanna's careful editing has turned Vincent into more than an artist. He's a figure of empathy, a symbol of struggle and brilliance. You feel the weight of her work, how she's given Vincent a voice that echoes far beyond his grave. The art world is changing, and Vincent is at its heart. You see his influence in young artists, who mimic his bold brushstrokes and vivid colors. Movements like Expressionism owe him a debt, drawing on his emotional intensity. You walk through a studio where a painter experiments with swirling skies, saying, "Van Gogh showed us how to feel on canvas." Collectors compete for his works, and critics rewrite their histories to include him. By the 1922nd, the starry night is a sensation, its cosmic beauty capturing imaginations worldwide. You sense Vincent's presence in every gallery, every conversation, as if his spirit lingers in the paint. Let's ground this in history. The early 20th century saw post-impressionism gain prominence, with Vincent's work bridging Impressionism's light and Expressionism's emotion. His rise to fame coincided with a growing interest in the tortured artist archetype, fueled by his tragic story. Historians still argue whether Johanna's efforts shaped Vincent's legacy more than the art itself. Did she craft his myth, or did his work speak for itself? The debate lingers, but her role in preserving and promoting his art was pivotal, turning a forgotten painter into a global icon. For a quirky tidbit, at one early exhibition, a visitor mistook Vincent's sunflowers for a real bouquet and tried to smell it, only to blush when told it was a painting. Johanna overheard and laughed, saying, "Vincent would have loved that." It's a charming moment, a reminder of how his art feels so alive, it fools the senses. You smile, imagining Vincent chuckling from beyond, delighted by the mix-up. As you leave the galleries, Vincent's star is rising higher. You see sunflowers reproduced in books, the starry night inspiring poets and dreamers. Johanna, now older, watches quietly, her mission nearly complete. She won't live to see Vincent's full fame. She dies in 1925, but you know her work has set something eternal in motion. You step away, the glow of Vincent's paintings lingering in your mind, a testament to a man who painted truth and a woman who ensured the world saw it. The legacy is no longer silent. It's a chorus, growing louder with every passing year. You're standing in a world where Vincent van Gogh's name is no longer a whisper, but a beacon, his paintings glowing in museums, and his story etched into the hearts of millions. It's the early 20th century, and the fields of Auvers, the sunlit streets of Arles, and the quiet asylum of Saint-Remy feel far away, yet Vincent's presence is everywhere. You're here to explore the core of his legacy, not just the vibrant canvases, but the pain behind them, the mental struggles that shaped his art and made him a symbol of genius intertwined with suffering. As you walk through galleries and read his letters, you see how Vincent's battles with his mind gave his work its luminous, haunting power. Picture yourself in New York, 1929, at the newly opened Museum of Modern Art. You stand before the starry night, its swirling blues and yellows pulling you in like a tide. The crowd around you is hushed, some staring in awe, others wiping tears. A woman whispers, "It's like he painted my dreams." You feel it too, the way the sky pulses with emotion, the way the stars seem to speak of longing and chaos. Vincent's mental health struggles, once a source of shame, are now part of his story, giving his art a depth that resonates across time. You see how his paintings don't just show beauty, they show the cost of seeing it so deeply. You reflect on Vincent's life, piecing together the moments that shaped his work. In the Borinage, you saw him sketch miners with empathy, their weary faces mirroring his own sense of being an outsider. In Arles, his vibrant sunflowers and café terrace at night glowed with hope, but the ear incident revealed a mind unraveling under pressure. In Saint-Remy, the starry night and irises were born from a man wrestling with hallucinations and despair. You realize his art wasn't despite his pain, it was because of it. Each brushstroke was a battle, a way to hold onto the world when it threatened to slip away. You feel the weight of that truth, the way his mental struggles fueled his genius, turning inner storms into universal beauty. Vincent's story changes how people talk about mental health. You overhear conversations in galleries where visitors share their own struggles, inspired by Vincent's honesty. His letters, published by Johanna, reveal a man who was open about his storms of the mind, writing to Theo about his episodes with raw clarity. I'm afraid of losing myself, but the painting keeps me here. You see students reading these words in classrooms, artists discussing them in studios. Vincent becomes a bridge, connecting those who feel alone in their struggles to a man who turned his pain into light. You sense the shift. Mental health, once taboo, is starting to be seen as human, thanks in part to Vincent's unflinching vulnerability. You walk through a London gallery in the 1932nd, where Wheatfield with Crows hangs, its dark birds and twisting paths evoking Vincent's final days. A critic nearby writes, Van Gogh's art is a cry from the soul, born of suffering. You see how his story challenges ideas of success. Vincent sold only one painting in his lifetime, yet now his works are priceless. You feel the irony, the way the world celebrates him now when it ignored him then. His struggles, poverty, rejection, mental illness make his art more powerful, a reminder that beauty can come from broken places. You notice young artists sketching in his style, their bold colors and swirling lines, a nod to the man who dared to paint what he felt. Let's ground this in history. In the early 20th century, as psychology emerged as a field, Vincent's story became a case study for the link between creativity and mental illness. The 1922nd and 1932nd saw growing interest in artists like him, whose work seemed to channel inner turmoil. Historians still argue whether Vincent's mental health issues, possibly bipolar disorder or epilepsy, amplified his genius or were a tragic obstacle he overcame. Did his illness create his art, or did his art save him from his illness? The debate lingers, but his ability to produce masterpieces amid breakdowns suggests a complex interplay of pain and brilliance. For a quirky tidbit, Vincent's self-portrait with bandaged ear once confused a gallery visitor who thought the bandage was part of the painting's style. A curator overheard and chuckled, saying, "That's Vincent. His wounds were his art." It's a light moment, but it carries truth. Vincent's pain was inseparable from his work. You smile, imagining him nodding in approval, his humor intact, even in memory. As you leave the gallery, you see Vincent's influence everywhere, in the bold colors of expressionist paintings, in the way people talk about art as therapy, in the quiet courage of those who share their own struggles. His paintings are more than images. They're proof that beauty can emerge from suffering, that genius can coexist with fragility. You feel the resonance of his life, the way it speaks to anyone who's ever felt alone or broken. Vincent's legacy isn't just in museums, it's in the way we see pain and creativity, intertwined like the stars and swirls of his skies. You step away, the glow of his canvases lingering, a reminder that even in darkness, there's light to be found. You're standing in a world where Vincent van Gogh's voice echoes not just through his paintings, but through the pages of his letters, raw and human, reaching across decades to touch readers everywhere. It's the early 20th century, and the glow of electric lights is spreading, but you're drawn to a quieter light, the one in Vincent's words, preserved by Johanna van Gogh. You're in a cozy bookstore, shelves lined with volumes of his correspondence, where readers linger over passages that feel like conversations with a friend. You're here to explore these letters, a window into Vincent's heart, revealing a man who poured his soul into words as much as paint, ensuring his story endures. You pick up a volume of Vincent's letters, the pages worn from countless hands. Most are to Theo, his brother and confidant, written from Zundert's fields, Paris's cafes, Arles' yellow house, and Saint-Ré, Mise asylum. You read his words, scrawled in ink that's faded but never dimmed. I feel a fire in me, Theo, and I must paint, or it will burn me up. Each letter is a mosaic of his life. Sketches of sunflowers, tucked in the margins, musings on color, confessions of loneliness. You feel his presence in every line, the way he describes the singing yellow of a wheat field or the soft blue of a starry night. These aren't just letters. They're a diary of a soul, raw and unfiltered, showing a man who lived for beauty despite his pain. You see readers in the bookstore, their faces softening as they turn the pages. A young woman underlines a passage where Vincent writes, "What would life be if we didn't have the courage to try anything?" she whispers to a friend. "He makes me want to keep going." You notice an artist nearby, copying a sketch from a letter into his notebook, inspired by Vincent's quick lines of a cypress tree. The letters are more than words. They're a bridge connecting Vincent to anyone who's ever felt lost, misunderstood, or driven to create. You feel the intimacy of it, the way his honesty about his struggles, his storms of the mind, his fear of failure makes readers feel seen. Johanna's role in this is undeniable. You imagine her in her Amsterdam apartment, transcribing these letters late at night, her son asleep nearby. She chose each one carefully, knowing they'd reveal Vincent's humanity, not just his art. You see her hesitate over the painful passages, his breakdowns, his despair, but she includes them, believing the world needs the whole story. Published in the 1892nd and early 1902nd, the letters find an audience slowly but surely. You watch critics in London and New York cite them, calling Vincent a poet in paint and words. Scholars study them, not just for art, but for insight into the human condition, his thoughts on love, faith, and beauty resonating like a quiet hymn. You walk through a university lecture hall where a professor reads from Vincent's letters to a room of students. He quotes, "I want to touch people with my art, to make them say, 'He feels tenderly.'" The students lean forward, some jotting notes, others staring into space, moved by the vulnerability. You see how the letters shape Vincent's legacy, turning him from a mad painter into a universal figure, a man who struggled but never stopped creating. They inspire artists to embrace emotion, writers to be honest, and ordinary people to find meaning in their own battles. You feel the ripple effect, the way his words travel beyond galleries into lives. Let's ground this in history. In the early 20th century, as psychology and literature intertwined, Vincent's letters became a cultural touchstone, offering a rare glimpse into an artist's mind. Their publication coincided with a growing interest in personal narratives. As memoirs and diaries gained popularity, historians still argue whether Johanna's editing shaped Vincent's image too neatly, emphasizing his genius over his instability. Did she craft a hero, or simply reveal one? The debate lingers, but the letter's impact humanizing Vincent, inspiring generations, is unquestionable. For a quirky tidbit, Vincent once sent Theo a letter with a coffee stain so large it blurred half the page. He apologized, joking, "My coffee wanted to paint too." Johanna kept it in the collection, stain and all, saying it showed his humanity. You smile, picturing Vincent chuckling as he tried to salvage the soggy page, his humor a small light in his struggles. As you leave the bookstore, you see Vincent's letters in the hands of readers, students, artists, dreamers. They're not just reading about art, they're reading about life, about fighting through darkness to find beauty. You feel the power of his words, the way they carry his voice across time, speaking to anyone who's ever felt too much. The letters are Vincent's final gift, a testament to his belief that art and honesty can heal. You step away, the pages still open in your mind, their words glowing like the stars he loved, eternal and alive. You're standing beneath a vast, swirling sky, not unlike the one Vincent van Gogh painted in the starry night. Its blues and yellows pulsing with a life that feels eternal. It's the early 20th century, but Vincent's presence stretches far beyond. His paintings now cherished in museums, his letters read by dreamers, his story, a beacon for anyone who's ever felt the weight of the world. You're here to reflect on his legacy, a testament to creating beauty from sorrow's depths, a voice that speaks softly, powerfully, to hearts across time. As you walk through this final chapter, the pace slows, the words soften, and you feel the quiet power of a man who turned pain into light. You imagine yourself in New York, 1932nd, at the Museum of Modern Art, where the starry night hangs, its swirling sky drawing crowds who stand in silence, their eyes tracing the curves of Vincent's stars. You see a young artist, sketchbook in hand, copying the painting's lines, whispering, "He makes me believe I can create something true." Across the ocean, in Amsterdam, sunflowers glows in a gallery, its golden petals a reminder of Vincent's hope in Arles. You feel the resonance of his work, how it speaks to the lonely, the searching, the broken. His paintings aren't just art, they're proof that even in despair, you can make something luminous, something that lasts. Vincent's legacy is more than canvas and paint. You see it in the way people talk about mental health now, inspired by his unflinching honesty in his letters. You walk through a modern classroom where a teacher reads his words. What am I in the eyes of most people? A nobody or an oddity? Students nod, some teary, recognizing their own struggles in his. Vincent's openness about his storms of the mind has made him a symbol, not of madness, but of resilience. You feel the shift he's sparked people speak more freely about their pain, seeing it not as weakness, but as part of being human. His art, born from those struggles, shows that beauty can bloom in the darkest places. You wander through a park where a musician strums a song inspired by the starry night, its melody soft and wistful. You see a poet in a cafe, scribbling lines about wheat fields and crows, Vincent's images woven into her words. His influence ripples through art, music, literature, touching anyone who's ever tried to express the inexpressible. You think of his time in the Borinage, sketching miners with empathy, or in Auvers, painting fields with desperate urgency. Each canvas was a fight, a refusal to let the darkness win. You feel the weight of that fight, the way it inspires others to keep going, to create, to find light in their own shadows. His story challenges what success means. You reflect on Vincent's life, poverty, rejection, only one painting sold, yet now his works are priceless, his name eternal. You see collectors bid millions for irises, museums guard the bedroom like a treasure. You smile softly, knowing Vincent would have shrugged, saying, "I just wanted to show what I saw." His legacy isn't in wealth or fame, But in connection, his art links people across continents, across centuries, reminding them they're not alone in their struggles. You feel the quiet power of that, the way his paintings whisper, "Keep going, there's beauty yet to find." Let's ground this in history. Vincent's rise to fame in the early 20th century coincided with a cultural shift toward valuing emotional expression in art, with movements like Expressionism and Fauvism owing him a debt. His story shaped the tortured artist archetype, though it's more complex than that. Historians still argue whether Vincent's legacy is about his art's universal appeal or the myth of his suffering. Did his pain make him a genius, or did his genius shine despite it? The debate lingers, but his impact on art, on how we see mental health, on the courage to create is undeniable. For a quirky tidbit, a museum once displayed Vincent's self-portrait with bandaged ear upside down by mistake, and a visitor quipped, "Even his pain looks right either way." The curator laughed, saying, "Vincent would have painted it again just to see." It's a gentle moment, a reminder of his ability to find humor in hardship. You chuckle, imagining Vincent tilting his head, amused by the error. As the light fades, you stand in Auvers, where Vincent and Theo lie side by side beneath a quiet hill. The wheat fields sway, the stars twinkle, and you feel their bond, unbroken even in death. Vincent's paintings, his letters, his story, they're a gift, a soft glow in the darkness. You see his sunflowers in your mind, their petals bright against the years, and you hear his voice. "I want to touch people with my art." He has, and he will, forever. The world was slow to see him, but now it can't look away. His sadness, his light, his truth they endure, whispering to you, to everyone, that beauty can rise from sorrow. You close your eyes, the stars above swirling like Vincent's skies. His legacy is a quiet promise. Create, feel, keep going. The fields are still, the night soft, and his paintings glow in your heart, a gentle hum to carry you to sleep. From silence came color, from suffering beauty, and from a lonely life, a voice that sings eternal.